the declaration on the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome, and you see it on the renewal of the institutions this year, where all of the future heads of our institutions are clearly aligned on that need for a shared responsibility. And secondly, Jean-Pierre completely right that responsibility has to be based around a positive message, and not a defensive message, not a technocratic message, but an overarching positive message. But talking to some of you in between sessions and listening to some of the sessions the last couple of days, I think there's a strand of opinion. I wouldn't say it's a majority strand of opinion, but there's a question which is often asked of us, and that is, well, shouldn't looking forward together mean some pretty basic things like speaking with one voice for the institutions? Shouldn't it mean some things like having a much more completely aligned messaging? And there, it's very tempting to say, yes, it should, but I would caution against that a little bit. I think there are some good reasons why, although we keep to that principle of a shared responsibility and a positive message, the messaging itself has to be subtly different from the institutions. And there are good reasons why that should be so. First of all, our institutions represented here on this table represent different interests of the Union, each with their own legitimacy. Each of those institutions will have a different take on any particular policy issue, and each of those institutions will want to communicate on that different take. We shouldn't be afraid of those differences. One of the things that makes the Union interesting are the differences. This is a political sphere, and we shouldn't apologise for that. If there are differences between the Parliament and the Council, that's what makes headlines sometimes. That's what gets people interested in the Union. The fact that the Parliament's elections were there to make a difference is evidence of that. So let's not think that looking forward together means we're going to have a kind of Politburo kind of single message on everything. In future it won't. That's not how different political entities in other parts of the world speak. You wouldn't expect parliaments and governments or different houses of the US Congress to have exactly the same message, and I don't think that's the way we're headed here either. Secondly, messaging is really only the tip of the iceberg for communication professionals here in the institutions. And there's an awful lot that happens below the waterline. It's often just as important, often just as interesting, and here there is actually a lot of collaboration and joint work between the institutions, but maybe there could be more still. We had one small example of it yesterday here at EuropeCom, where the institutions jointly launched their Spotify account. I looked at another example earlier this year, where it was the institutions acting together in response to a change of policy of Facebook, where it tightened its rules on advertising, that meant that we were able to have an impact. And I'm sure that Facebook would have much preferred the institutions to have been divided, to have said different things, and for Facebook simply to have got away with what it wanted. But we came together, we had a single line on that, and we pushed back on it. So I think there's a big and yet fully explored potential for collaboration among the institutions there, pooling our knowledge, our resources, and seeing what we can do in addition on those kind of issues. So there are some really big strategic issues there, and the regulation of the social media space is a very big one of them. Should we allow tech giants to be able to decide on the rules of free speech essentially on their own, with no barriers to the way in which misinformation can spread across platforms? I don't think so. I don't think that's the view of my colleagues on this panel either, and I think these are going to be some interesting issues to look at together in the next 5 years. But there are some more gritty things as well where we could work together. Community management online. Resources for communication in all the institutions are limited, and there are some things that we have to do which are pretty similar. Should we look at, for example, jointly developing some technical solutions? Should we look at, see how we could work together on chatbots for social media? Looking at AI as a tool for the future. So there are just a few examples and some ideas. I think there's actually, on the basis of the conversations that we've had in the past few months and our teams have had, actually a lot of common ground in terms of where we see communication of the institutions going. And that's echoed in many of the panels that we've had the last couple of days. Everybody agrees it has to be more appealing. Everybody agrees it must be more directly relevant to citizens. Everybody agrees that overtly political messaging has an impact. The personal and the localized work and the engaging work as well. So there, I think we're pushing forward in the same ways. In terms of a negative agenda, we know we have some issues we have to work on together. I've mentioned disinformation, propaganda, bots, trolls. One I think that we need to look at again together, which I'm quite concerned about, is deep fakes. I think it will be increasingly easy and increasingly dangerous in the coming years to see spread on social media fake videos of the President of the Commission or the President of the European Council, and I think we have to be ready for that and ready to track those videos, stop their proliferation. So again, lots of work still to do there. Finally, I think we need to move away a little bit from the situation we've inevitably been in the last 5 or 8 years, which is moving from crisis to crisis. We're just perhaps exiting that era, hopefully, and that will allow us, I think, to focus on how we as institutions in our communication can continue to be creative and innovative. Again, a big theme that I've heard yesterday and today, encouraging our colleagues sometimes to take risks if they want to survive, and in trying to foster creativity, nothing kills that creativity more than committees. We all know it. The best communication products are not really the outcome of hours of civil servants sitting together in committees. So if we want to keep it political, if we want to keep it fresh and engaging, let's try to keep the lines short. Let's try to allow a little bit of risk-taking in the institutions. Gone are the days when we thought we could produce things that everybody will like. We shouldn't be frightened of saying things that not everybody likes. We should be delighted, frankly, if we say some things that some people hate and take offence to. If we can do engaging communication for the 80% of people who are either very pro-European or softly pro-European, then I think we will have succeeded. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to lose one of our panelists, so we will say goodbye and thank you very much. I will say you can still interact with us on social media even while you're catching your train. Okay.